It almost feels like fate that once I say something that's been on the community's mind for quite some time now, is the moment when Starbreeze actually does something about it. Even if what they ended up doing is more of a bandage solution instead of an actual remedy. But I also can't say definitively either way, considering this is an open beta and things are subject to further adjustment before the full release. At the time of this video, Payday 3 is undergoing an open beta for peer-to-peer matchmaking on Steam, which you can also participate in until February 2nd at 6 AM Eastern Standard Time. Presumably, the actual patch with these changes and more polish will be released shortly after, which I'm already looking forward to. I'm not going to go into detail about everything that was changed, since I don't want to take away from when the actual patch drops, but I want to at least give my impressions on what's changed so far. I mean, they wouldn't have put it in the players' hands if they didn't want it criticized, right? There's three things I primarily want to talk about. Some skill changes, like putting hard limits on sniper rifle and turret damage buffs, the peer-to-peer connections and what could be changed to make it work better alongside the servers, mostly on the UI side since I don't know how the actual connecting part works, and the changes to the heist that will soon formally have the circle mechanic. Firstly, the skill changes. I'm going to start on the positives with the skills here. Something that was brought up near the initial release of Skills 2.0 was how the base skills that gave you an increased stat for more skills invested in the tree didn't show an actual number and made you do math instead to figure out how much of a buff you got. Now, you don't need to bust out the calculator when you're number crunching your assault rifle tree to make sure you only need a single burst to kill a heavy SWAT with your chain at S3. Another slight benefit is that skill points have been tweaked in a few cases, but I'm not going to get into the weeds in that since, again, this is something that could very easily change before the actual patch drops in February. I do want to mention the significant change to machine war and head game skills before I move on, though. Once this patch comes out, instead of stacking indefinitely like they do currently, these two skills will have hard limits for how much extra damage your equipment can do. Turret damage bonuses will max out at 175%, and marksman rifles were capped at 75 extra damage, as well as the damage buff per headshot on marksman rifles being reduced to 7.5% from 10%. This isn't a bad thing in the grand scheme of things, but if you're still trying to get that Kiss the Chef challenge done, you better make a turret build now before it gets nerfed into reasonability. Moving on from the skills, the primary reason this open beta is even a thing at all is the peer-to-peer connectivity. As for the performance of it, it definitely makes a lot of heists run much more smoothly than on the dedicated servers, even if those have been getting more and more stable since Payday 3's launch. I suppose I might as well explain what peer-to-peer is and why it's something that Payday 3 could use. Basically, the way that the game works right now is by connecting everyone to a central server. That's what you see in the bottom here when queuing for a heist, in case you never noticed. There are servers in quite a few countries, so finding one you can connect to well isn't the issue. The issue comes with the fact that, as far as I know, the servers are being used to essentially run the heist while you actually play it and make things happen. It's like the server is a self-driving car and you and your three buddies are choosing what streets to go down. Peer-to-peer, on the other hand, is more like if you were driving that car manually and your three friends are trying to figure out how to read a paper map. Even if you don't know where you're going, it cuts out the metaphorical middleman and makes things much more controllable. In short, that's really the best way I could come up with to explain the difference between these and why it's not actually a bad thing so long as you're not running the game on a potato. However, I do wish there was a way to choose whether you want to host a game on a dedicated server or your own machine instead of what seems to be railroading into only one option. Maybe just add a button when you're setting up a lobby. Now, something I don't need to convince you is good is the fact that Under the Surface, Golden Shark, 99 Boxes, and even Turbid Station have all had the circle mechanic removed. Circles are dead. Now, to replace them is the same modem mechanic introduced in Shopping Spree and retroactively added into Touch the Sky. Aside from 99 Boxes, which just had the verifier button that spawned the circles originally, completely removed, letting you just open the door and grab the tech without anything to stop you except the QR reader on the outside of the container. I don't hate this, but I do hope that this is only a temporary solution to the circles being removed rather than a permanent choice. The modems worked fine on Touch the Sky, but it's a lot more difficult to justify it on a heist like Under the Surface, which has a dedicated server room that would logically negate the need for the modems in the first place. Of course, I'm not saying I want the circles back, but I'd like to have something else as an alternative that fits better within the heist's setting instead. It's almost like I have a video talking about that with the base game heists. Maybe you should check them out, eh? On a similar token, though, I did notice a lot more white coffee mugs scattered around the warehouse area in 99 Boxes, so maybe it's a sign that they're working on adding the fingerprint scanner instead? I mean, this part's just speculation, but hey, the mechanic was reused in Delivery Charge. Maybe they just didn't prioritize that over the peer-to-peer stuff in time for people stress tested. I don't know. Anyway, this is honestly looking to be one of the better updates for Payday 3 overall, though as it changes more under the hood than on top of it, it might not be all that impressive to some people. I think it's a good step in the right direction, at least, if you want my thoughts on it. Next on the list of Payday videos is one talking about general improvements and things I think the game should focus on in a general sense, and honestly, half of the reason I did this video in the first place was purely so I wouldn't say something and have someone go, yeah, they just patched that in the beta, immediately after. Until that time, though, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you take care.